We come now to Appendix 3 of the Daniel 11 hypothesis, which covers verses 21 through 30 in the first 2.5 months of the 5-month-long hour of temptation that begins at the woe of the fifth trumpet when Satan and his angels are cast from heaven to earth. Satan's angels being the locust army of Revelation chapter 9 in the book of Joel, and Daniel's fourth beast that you can read of in Daniel chapter 7 is exclusively supernatural, made up of Satan and his fallen angel locust army, including those 10 fallen angel kings that reign 1 hour with Satan, the 5-month-long hour of temptation. It's at the woe of the fifth trumpet that the he-goat of Daniel chapter 8 becomes the leopard of Daniel chapter 7, when those 4 notable ones, which are the lion, the bear, the leopard, and Daniel's fourth beast, all rise up together at the same time in the one world political system also written of in Revelation chapter 13. So with a word of wisdom from our Father in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, Daniel chapter 11 verse 21, and in his estate, the estate of the one who sends a raiser of taxes, which is the United Nations, shall stand up a vile person, that is to say Satan, once he's cast from heaven to earth, when he gives the one world political system its power and its seat and great authority, as you can see in Revelation chapter 13. This is when Daniel's 70th week begins, which was 7 years, but is now 5 months, and the covenant Satan confirms with many you can read of in Daniel 9:27 is the covenant of a one world political system. The dragon, which is Satan, stood on the sand of the sea is really how Revelation 13 verse 1 should have been translated, letting us know that there's a 2.5 month period before 666 in which Satan is upon the earth as well as his fallen angels. And the reason this one world political system comes together so quickly at the woe of the fifth trumpet might be due to the flying vehicles of Satan's angels written of in Revelation chapter 9 verse 9 being perceived as an alien invasion, causing all nations to join together in a one world government to quote-unquote save the world. So Satan is the vile person to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom. Notice he's not called a king until after verse 31, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries, but not until 666 when he appears as the Antichrist. This word flatteries can even mean as smooth stones were used for lots, which is what we're supposed to enumerate to count the number of the beast, 666 being when the king of Tyrus, which is Satan, appears as Antichrist. Tyrus means rock, and the stones worn smooth are the Kenites, who are the natural branches of Satan's family tree. And this next verse looks forward to the midst of the week also, Daniel's 70th week, which was 7 years, but is now 5 months. And with the arms of a flood they shall be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. But not until verse 31, because the flood of deception doesn't begin until 666. Notice in Revelation chapter 12, it's not until after that first half hour, so to speak, in verse 14, that the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, which is the deception that comes out of his mouth when he appears as the false Christ in Daniel 11:31. And after the league made with him, the covenant with many, he shall work deceitfully and shall become strong with the small people, the Kenites, who at this point will have become the leopard of Daniel chapter 7, having 4 heads because of their 4 hidden dynasties of education, economics, politics, and religion. He shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the provinces, and he shall do that which his fathers, meaning his predecessors, have not done, neither his fathers' fathers. In other words, Satan will succeed where the League of Nations and the United Nations failed, not only by bringing about a one-world political system at the woe of the fifth trumpet, but also a one-world religious system at the woe of the sixth trumpet. He shall scatter them among the prey and spoil and riches, yea, he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds even for a time, through the 4 hidden dynasties as well as his fallen angel locust army, in the Gnar, Swarmer, and Devourer stages in the first 2.5 months up until the deadly wound, which is evidently covered in verses 25 through 27. Notice in verse 26 that word slain, which is number 2941 in the Strong's Concordance, can even mean deadly wounded. The lion and the bear, who are the king of the south and the king of the north in these particular verses, apparently will try to heal the wound diplomatically, but as it's written in Revelation 13, it's Satan's appearance as Antichrist at 666 that heals the deadly wound, so to speak, and that's when most Christians are killed spiritually. The third of mankind you can read of in Revelation chapter 9. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant. Not the covenant with many of Daniel 9:27, but the holy covenant, that is to say Christianity itself. It says his land here because because it's the land of Kenite-occupied Israel as it's been since 1948 when the final generation began. At the time appointed he shall return, but it shall not be as the former, meaning politically, or as the latter, meaning violently, at the end of the 5 months, which is really when he makes war with the remnant of the woman's seed, as you can see in Revelation chapter 12, verse 17, murdering the 2 witnesses, who are most likely Moses and Elijah, 3.5 days before the true Christ returns, and sending the Ezekiel 38 confederacy after all who are standing against him at that time. But after 3.5 days, the 2 witnesses are resurrected, who are most likely Moses and Elijah, in the ships of Chittim of verse 30 of Daniel chapter 11, which is right before verse 31, which is when Satan appears as the false Christ. Chittim can denote cypress, the Greek name for the Mediterranean cypress trees, which can live for thousands of years, as Moses and Elijah have, who appeared on the Mount of Transfiguration, as we know from Matthew 17, as well as the 9th chapters of both Mark and Luke, appearing possibly even 8.5 days before 666 as the 2 olive trees, becoming the 2 candlesticks at the woe of the 6th trumpet. And when you count the candlestick in heaven that you can read of in Revelation chapter 4, verse 5, which is symbolic of those who return with Christ at the 7th trumpet, who are the ships of Chittim, also you could even say the armies which were in heaven, you could read of in Revelation chapter 19, the rest of the Zadok, along with the 7 candlesticks of Revelation chapters 2 and 3, which are the 7 churches. That's 10 candlesticks, just as it was in the temple Solomon built, which was burned by Nebuchadnezzar, a type of Antichrist. The 70 years in captivity to Babylon being a type of the 70 evenings or 2.5 months that begin in Daniel 11 verse 31.